Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this special Brave Girls story time of Breonna Marches Through Time with one of the co-authors, Daveena Kenny. You'll be reading the story as well as talking about how to start writing your own stories. My name is Emma, and I'm the Associate Educator of Digital Learning and Innovation at the National Women's History Museum. And as I'm doing these introductions, I would love to know who is here. So I'm going to put a poll. I'd love for you to tell us who you are joining us with. So a few housekeeping notes. Daveena will be answering questions at the end of her reading. You are welcome to ask your questions at any time during the program by using the Q&A function on the toolbar. We will not be able to get to all of your questions, but we're going to do our best, and Daveena is happy to answer your questions. And with that, I would really like to introduce our author. Daveena Kenny is an 18-year-old senior at Coolidge Senior High School in Washington, D.C. She likes to dance, go outdoors, and journal her feelings and thoughts. She wrote Breonna Marches Through Time because she wanted children to be aware of what's going on in their daily lives and to discuss why African American people live the way they do. She hopes readers understand that they can make a change and that they should never be afraid to use their voices. We are also joined by two representatives from Shout Mouse Press, Carlin and Alexa. And this Brave Girls is in partnership with Shout Mouse Press. And Shout Mouse Press is a writing and publishing program dedicated to amplifying underheard voices. They coach writers from marginalized communities to tell their own stories in their own voices and as published authors to act as agents of change. Shout Mouse authors have produced original children's books, novels, comics, and memoir and poetry collections that engage reluctant readers as well as open hearts and minds. Thus far, they have produced over 50 books by Black, Latinx, Muslim, immigrant, low-income, and otherwise marginalized youth in DC and Haiti. And you can see all of their books at shoutmousepress.org/catalog. And with that, I would love to welcome Daveena to the screen.
Hello, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I will take a quick moment just to introduce myself as well. My name is Carlin Newhouse. I'm the Programs and Social Media Coordinator at Shout Mouse. And Shout Mouse Press, as we just mentioned, is a publishing company and a writing organization. So we support young authors in the DC area, particularly young authors of color, to write their own stories. And today we're going to be talking about one of those stories, Breonna Marches Through Time. So I'm super excited for this. We have one of our authors here today, one of the co-authors of this book. We're going to have some really fun conversations, and it's going to be a good time. If you guys have questions or things that you want to share, you're more than welcome to drop them in the chat. This is going to be as interactive as possible, but feel free to share things as they go along, and we'll also have time and space for your own questions. So be thinking about what you might want to ask Daveena. In the meantime, though, I would love to kick it over to our author, Daveena. Good morning. Can you introduce yourself to our friends on the call? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, your pronouns, your background. Introduce yourself to us.
Hello, good morning. My name is Daveena. I am 18 years old, and I'm a senior now at Coolidge Senior High School in Washington, D.C. And I wrote the book Breonna Marches Through Time because I wanted people to be aware of what's happening in the world. And my pronouns are she, her, and I like to dance and cheer and go outside and just write and journal.
Beautiful. Can you tell us, how old were you when you wrote this, and when did you write it? What was happening in the world at that time?
I was a ninth grader. I was 15 years old, and I wrote this book in like 2020. This when George Floyd was killed by police brutality, and it was a lot of marches and protests and riots happening in 2020 because of racial injustice and police brutality. And also in 2020, I also had a personal experience with police brutality. So yeah, that made me want to talk more about it, made me write the book. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your background and what was your connection to this story. I would love to ask a question to our friends that are on the call. You're more than welcome to put your answers in the chat. What do you remember happening in 2020? What do you remember happening in the world or in your life maybe any of your adults that are on the call with you, anything that y'all remember, just to get our brains to start, flowing and thinking about this conversation we're about to have. So with that in mind, Daveena, can you give us a summary of your book and a little bit about what it's going to be about before we get into the fun reading of this story?
Sure. This story was about an 8-year-old time traveler. Her name was Breonna, and she sees these horrible things happening in her community. So she travels to the past and to the future to see like how could she change the community, like in the future, like, how could she change her community with the terrible things that was happening. So she meets a young girl who she gets her ideas from, who inspire her to make a change.
Absolutely. And inspired by a real activist, Mary Looper Hildreth, which is an incredible person who did things from a young age and was a brave girl. So we're going to be having conversations about what it means to be a brave girl and to be brave. So with that in mind and that beautiful summary of the story, are you guys ready for a story time? Because I am. I'm excited. I've been waiting to hear Daveena read all day. We've got the story projected on the screen. Thank you to our programs director, Alexa Patrick, for sharing this document with everybody. So you guys are welcome to read along and look at all the cool images while Daveena is reading. So get comfortable, settle into your time traveling chair. And Daveena, you can read whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
You can start by reading the title and then we will move to the next page.
Okay. Breonna Marches Through Time. For all the kids whose voices are never heard, now is the time to make a change. And for Breonna Taylor. This book was inspired by Marilyn Looper Hildreth. At 8 years old, Hildreth suggested protesting segregation or the forced separation of Black people from white people by sitting at the Katz Drug Store lunch counter in Oklahoma City. This suggestion led to some of the first sit-ins of the civil rights movement. The first time I learned I could time travel was the day I knew my community was in trouble. Let me tell you the story. I live in Washington, D.C., Southeast D.C., if you want to be specific. And I do. Most summer days, everyone on my street will be outside enjoying themselves. We all knew each other. We always connected. We would go to the sweets and treats and get oatmeal cream pies, or we would go to the truck and get hot sausages and seeds. But this was not like most summers. This summer, stores are boarded up and the ice cream truck doesn't come around anymore. Instead of hearing the truck song, we hear police sirens. Voices on megaphones chant, "Black Lives Matter." The people who I love don't come around anymore either. Now it's just my mom, my dad, and my older brother, Brandon. This summer, we're all stuck at home and people are feeling down. My mom used to go outside and water her garden. My dad used to laugh and joke with the neighbors. Brandon used to go to the court with his friends to play basketball. But now, all my family does is watch the news and say, "Oh, Lord." And all I do is stay in the house and miss my friends. There's so much going on, and we're all feeling helpless. How is anything going to change? I want to get my community back. One day, I am watching TV with my family. I see lots of different kinds of people, different colors, different ages, some even as young as I am. They are holding posters with faces on them, faces that look like the people I know. I hear, no justice, no peace, and all of a sudden, things go black. When I wake up, I am on a city street. I see old-fashioned cars that make a lot of noise. Everyone I see is wearing suits or long dresses. I don't recognize anything. Where am I? I look around and see that I look around and see signs that say whites only. They're everywhere. The public restrooms, the movie theater, water fountains, a drugstore with the name Cats. Everything starts spinning. I need to find safety. I see a nearby church with no sign. I go inside. Inside, I see a young Black girl speaking at the front of the church. She looks as old as I am. She's speaking to a group of kids who are captivated by what she's saying. They say, "Woo!" and "Take your time, Maryland." I look down and I see a newspaper on the pew called the Daily Oklahoman. The date on it is November 17th, 1955. How did I get here? And more importantly, how am I going to get back? I need to sit down. NAACP Youth Council. I am tired of segregation, says the girl. All people should be equal. We should be unified, not divided. Mm-hmm, says a lady in the pew in front of me. So I have an idea, continues the girl. How about we go down to Cat's drugstore and just sit? Just sit at their whites only lunch counter until they serve us. People begin to whisper. I watch and think, this idea will actually take someone's breath away. How can someone so small hold so much power? We demand equal rights now, says the girl. Our goal is a peaceful movement to break down the fence of discrimination and segregation. Watching her, I am determined to have a great impact on others as well. And as I think about how I can make a change, I hear chanting, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. And again, everything goes black. When I wake up, things look familiar, but also changed. Sweets and Treats is now luxury apartments. Where the ice cream truck will park, there is now a vegan restaurant. What is happening? What happened to my community? The wind blows a magazine my way. It reads July 2025. I start to hear voices and I follow them down the street. Say his name, Brandon. Remember his voice. Black Lives Matter. This is still going on. I think I walk closer and see a familiar face on the signs. It's my brother. I start to worry. Is Brandon in danger? Is he okay? How can I make sure he stays safe? I can't let this keep happening to my community. I hear no justice, no peace, no justice, and everything goes black. When I wake up, I am home again. My family is wearing the same clothes from before. I look around, wondering if they notice anything out of the ordinary. They don't. They are focused on the TV and the protesters. I step in front of the TV to block their view. I went back in time, I say excitedly. I met a young activist named Merlin. She was the same age as me and had the same skin color as me. She was powerful, young, and brave. She inspired me to stand up for my community. So from now on, this is what I will do. My parents looked at each other. They looked concerned. My brother looked surprised. You got an active imagination, sis, he says. Imagination or not, my father says, you are our daughter, Breonna, and we want to support you. We want to make a change too. So the next day, we finally go to a protest instead of watching them on TV. My mother's voice rises up in flames as she chants. My father passes out water bottles to the other protesters. My brother protects me as I march. And I do. I march proudly and alongside my family, alongside my community, like I march throughout time. I feel like I am a part of history, like I am building a better future, like I am helping the world. I walk to the front of the group and see a stage. I wave at the speaker behind the microphone. He sees my passion and gestures for me to come over. And I look around and smile, stepping up to the podium. I hear Merlene's voice in my head. All people should be equal. We should be unified, not divided. As the crowd settles, I make one hand into a fist. I am ready to make a change and get our community back. Are you? The end.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for reading, Daveena. Isn't Daveena such a fun reader? The voices and the energy and the pauses. It's such an experience. It's like a book becoming a movie right in front of you. Great. Thank you so much for that. Friends, please feel free to take some time we'll give you just a moment to think about what did you connect to in the story, or what is something that you noticed that maybe you wouldn't have thought about before. So you can take a moment to put that in the chat or to share with whoever you're in the room with. We would love to see your answers in the chat, though, just taking a moment to think about what you connected to in the story, or what was something you noticed that you hadn't maybe thought about before. In the meantime, while folks are thinking about that, Daveena, is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. So the first question I want to ask you is, what advice would you give to a young person who is interested in writing down and sharing their own story?
I would say have some good friends to help and have some good ideas, because me and 3 other friends wrote this book over the span of 5 weeks. We only had 5 weeks to write this. We had help with the story coach and the illustrator, the draw illustrator and the story coach. So we all took time to jot our ideas down, and we all we just helped write the book, and we used our voice and spoke up and shared what we had to say with the others. So yeah.
That's a great answer. What advice would you give to a young person who believes that their voice does not matter?
I would say participate in a lot of marches and protests. I found different ways to make my voice heard. So there are different ways to do that. So just share how you feel heard. It's not all just about writing a book. You can draw, you can go to protests, you can march, you can just participate and make yourself, heard.
Beautiful. I love that answer. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to open up the chat to a Q&A from our friends, but I will ask you a couple of other quick questions. Daveena, why did you decide to tell this particular story? Like, there were so many different stories that you could have told, but you decided to tell this particular story in this particular moment in time about this particular powerful girl named after another young Black woman that was a victim to police violence, and also inspired by a young Black woman activist. Why did you decide to tell this story? It's so layered and amazing.
So I wanted to speak more about like reality. So I wanted the children to understand that it's things happening in this world, and I think that they should like be aware of what's going on. So I wanted to like show what's going on in the world in the children's book, make it appropriate for them to understand that a lot of changes and a lot of fixes that we need in the future to be done. So
absolutely. And as we're speaking about bravery, it took a lot of bravery, I imagine, to write this story, especially in a very particular moment in time, 2020. We're here on Zoom with each other. You guys wrote these stories over Zoom, right?
yes,
What was that like?
It was the pandemic. It was very different. Like it was very different. We had a lot of Zoom meetings and virtual calls. Yeah, it wasn't like how I would expect in person when I met them all in person. It's very different.
And I imagine being able to have that space while it can feel distanced, to have this virtual space. It also is really cool to have the opportunity to be able to connect with each other virtually, and especially in spaces where folks are unwell or distance. Like today, we're able to gather with each other virtually, and I saw we have friends in here from Texas and New York, and all over the place. And your book is reaching people from so many different places, and that's super powerful to be able to think about. So I really appreciate that. We are going to transition over to our Q&A in just a second. So folks, you are more than welcome to put those questions in the chat. In the meantime, I will ask you one more question, Daveena. What was your favorite part of writing this story? And or what was the most challenging part? You can either answer the first part or the second part, or you can answer both of them. What was the most challenging part versus what was the most exciting part or the best part of writing this story?
So the most exciting part about writing the story was like deciding of how Breonna was going to look. So we all had different ideas about how we wanted her to dress. What earrings should she wear? Her shirt? Should she wear pants or a skirt? Sandal or shoes? Like that was fun. Designing the picture in the comic book. The hardest part of writing the book was just being able to tell a true story and make it like appropriate for children to understand. That was the hardest because it was more of like a strong topic and it was about reality. So I wanted to make it more like childly, more appropriate for them to understand. That was the hardest.
Beautiful. That's a great answer. Thank you so much, Daveena. And perfect timing. We are right at 12:30. We're making great time, friends. So I am going to invite our community over at the National Women's History Museum to pop on, and we're gonna get to answer some of you guys' questions. So super excited for that.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Daveena and Carlin, for getting us started with this Q&A. And Daveena, I just want to say that not only is it so brave that you wrote this book, but it's so brave that you're sharing it with us now today. And I just want to thank you for this really wonderful and inspiring story. And I really love listening to it, and I know our audience did too. So to get us started, we have a question from Ariana, who's calling in from Spain. She loved the book and she said, "What was this your first book? And do you plan to do more books?"
Yes, this was my first book with Shout Mouse Press. I do plan on making more books this summer. I do plan on joining the program. I was planning on doing the Breonna Marches Through Time part two of the future. So yeah, I'm working on it.
That's amazing. I mean, we all love a sequel. So I'm looking forward to seeing that come out. So another question, and again, to our audience, please drop your questions in the Q&A. We'd love to see what you are thinking. But another question is, what were books important to you growing up, Daveena? And if so, what was your favorite book when you were a kid?
Okay. Yeah, books was a point to me. I always like to read, write, chat, just note down things. My favorite book will be my book. Well, before I wrote my book, the favorite book, I would say The Great Gatsby. Yeah,
Very cool. Why is that the book that comes to mind?
because in class we was reading The Great Gatsby and we had these questions of like the story was like very mysterious, and I like to be mysterious. Like I like TV shows that you help find out things and help just piece things together and change and find fixes. So that book was about that. So I liked it.
Yeah. I read Great Gatsby in high school, and it's
Yeah.
one of the books that still means something to me. It's one of the books I actually remember reading in high school, so it's a great one to pick. All right,
Mhm.
we have another question from our audience, which is, who inspires you from history?
Hmm. I would say Martin Luther King Jr. because he was more of a peaceful man who wanted change, and I'm more of a peaceful person too. And that's why I wrote the book, because I did it in a peaceful way to get my voice heard. And he did the same way. He did speeches, he wrote, he's a peaceful person. I look up to Martin Luther King.
That's an amazing answer. And yeah, the power of words. I think you're hitting at this really, really important message, and one that relates back to what you were saying about getting inspired to write, that if you have something to say, write it down because your voice matters. And I think your book does a beautiful, makes that point beautifully, Davina. So thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
And then another question, and you started talking about this, but I'd love to know a little bit more about your story of why you wanted to become an author and why you want to continue writing books.
So with Shout Mouse Press, they have, with the organization Reach, it's different. They have a summer leadership academy, and I was put into Shout Mouse Press to write books. I already loved writing and just noting down things, so I really enjoyed just writing the book. So now that I got a lot of views and author talks, I've been on the news. This is like my fourth or fifth talk. Now this has inspired me to write another story. Everybody's like, Daveena, why aren't you writing more stories? I'm like, I think I need help because I got help with four other friends. And so I'm just waiting to make a new book. So it's coming for sure though. It's coming.
That is amazing. Wow, you are quite prolific. You've been on the news. That's incredible.
Mhm.
And Also very brave. So thank you for being such an inspiring, brave woman. Another question from our audience. So they say in the past, women were frequently prevented from speaking at civil rights protests. And our audience member loves the fact that a girl is invited to speak at a protest in your book. Was that intentional, focusing on a young, brave girl?
Hmm. No, it was not intentional. Just it was well, it was all girls who wrote the book instead of one. It was one male, and we just all decided should it be a girl or boy. Girls are less likely like spoken like then they don't really put girls to speak out in books. It's always like a male figure, so it was just better for us to put a female version out. So we thought that would be more.
Yeah, I love that point that I think girls are taught that maybe our voices don't matter as much as boys' voices. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not true. Our voices are so important and everyone's voice matters. And girls should speak up. We should make our opinions known because, we're really smart and we've got really good opinions.
I would
Now,
also like to, I'm so sorry, if I could just also
it's
offer up that think talking about the power of having young women speak up. This book was inspired largely by Marilyn Looper Hildreth, who we talk about in the beginning of the book. And so that being the inspiration for the story is very intentional to make sure that she is, highlighted in her story because that's connected to, this lineage of women speaking up and doing activism work in a variety of ways, including the way that Daveena and your other authors, y'all did that in this story, because writing is a form of activism. And you guys told these really incredible, beautiful stories, these great images. And so you're getting these conversations about, speaking out and civil rights and all these things with really young audiences. And that's where it's supposed to start. But you're also highlighting the voices of this young girl, making a change, the young girl that she goes back to the past, being able to see that. And so I just wanted to uplift and highlight that, Daveena, you're a part of that lineage of, powerful young women that are making a change.
And
I
also
think
to recognize Breonna Taylor too. So yeah.
Absolutely. The
absolutely.
namesake after the book, Breonna Marches Through Time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have someone in our audience in the chat chiming in saying girl power, and I just want to second that girl power. But yeah, it is so inspiring to see our you, Daveena, and everyone on this call, the next generation who are being so brave and taking a stand and speaking up for what they believe in and what matters to them. So again, thank you. And I would encourage everyone on this call to go look up Marilyn, a little research project for you so you know more about the inspiration behind this story. I'm going to do that too. So last question for you, Daveena. So you said you're going to write part 2. What else? What's next for Daveena?
You saying what's next of me writing the book, or like what's
No, just what's next? What's next for you in your life? You're a spring semester senior, so what's on the horizon.
yeah, I'm about to graduate Coolest Senior High School in Washington, D.C. I'm a senior, so yes, I'm about to graduate, about to go to prom. And this summer I'm thinking of joining the fire cadet program. So yeah.
Very cool. Do you have your prom dress yet?
No, not yet. I don't have my prom dress yet.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a very exciting shopping experience. I remember when I went shopping for my prom dress. It's very exciting. Well, that is, and we have Alexa from Shoutmouse Press has put a link in the chat to learn more about Maryland, from the Library of Congress. I would encourage all of you watching to go check out that history of Maryland. But I think with that, with the questions, I just want to say again, Daveena, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, for being here to answer all of our questions and just being such a an amazing role model for young authors and young women to speak out and write down the things that matter. And thank you, Carlin and Alexa from Shout Mouse Press, for partnering with us and bringing us Daveena, her story, as well as all of the other stories in your catalog. And again, please go to their website, Shout Mouse Press, and check out their amazing catalog and consider buying a book from their catalog. And for all of you watching, thank you for joining us. We have more Brave Girls coming up, so please go to our website, www.womenshistory.org, to see those upcoming programs. And again, Daveena, Carlin, Alexa, everyone here, thank you so much. This was so wonderful.
Thank you so much. I would love to leave our audience and our friends a little prompt to go home with, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Just to inspire folks as we're having these amazing conversations about writing, about being brave, about telling your story. We have a short prompt for you to take back. So I just dropped it in the chat for accessibility as well. But the prompt that I want you guys to take home with you, or take off screen with you, I guess, is that we'd like you to write down what you think makes a girl brave. Why does your voice matter, or why do their voice matter? Or you can also take the opportunity to write about a time where you felt like you were brave. This can be done in a story or a poem or a list, but we want you to think about what makes a girl brave, or what made you brave, and what does it look like to tell a little bit about that story. If it's helpful, you can use the stem, a brave girl is ... and fill that in. Brave girls are strong because, fill that in. I use my voice when and fill that in. Or a strong woman looks like ... and fill that in. So I think that it'll be really fun for you to take a moment, again, that is posted in the chat. But take some time to think about, as you're starting your own stories, especially anybody who may be inspired to write now. These are some good places for you to start. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on with us. Thank you so much to the Women's History Museum again for allowing us to be a part. Thank you, Daveena. But I just wanted to drop that prompt very quickly, and I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. I think that is a wonderful message to end on. Please share your stories. Think about sharing your voice. It matters. We want to hear from you. And again, Daveena, Carlin, Alexa, Shout Mouse Press, everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye,
Thank you for
everyone.
having me.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.